to the Shades of Entrepreneurship, where we interview entrepreneurs to inspire the future entrepreneur. I'll be your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. So grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with the CEO of the Fran Dream, James, and also I'm holding the mic, so if it looks a little weird, I do apologize in advance. But first, let's go ahead and introduce James. James, how are we doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm excited about this one, folks. I got to tell you, it's kind of cracking me up. Me and James were chatting here briefly, and James is calling in from good old Riverside, California. So now, folks, I'm sure if you guys have passed 200 episodes or so, you probably know my wife is actually from Riverside, California. Very, very small. She's actually from the Lancaster area, but same difference. It's all general in that general vicinity. But James is going to be talking about franchises today, which I'm really excited about because, in fact, I was just recently, James, kind of funny, just recently this week, a local bar here called the Sports Brawl. It actually does women's sports 24/7. That's all it focuses on. And they just started a franchise model. But before we get into all that, James, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is James?
Yes, James Hilovsky, CEO of the Fran Dream. I am, I don't really think I sell anything. I'm kind of a matchmaker. I show people what is out in the franchise market, think what would be a great fit for them, help them figure out during the process if it is a good fit, and all the questions to ask and everything that would go on during the process. I help candidates with that.
I love how you started out. It's like, I don't actually do anything. I'm just a connector. And that's exactly kind of where my role is. I always tell people I don't manage anyone, but I influence everyone. Right. And if you go on my LinkedIn, folks, I recently changed my title. It says helping brands sell and relationships scale, because that's exactly what James and I do. We build relationships and then we go from there. But before we get all the scaling and relationship building, James, go ahead and give me some background. How did you tell me kind of about your first career? What did you start getting into? And then how did you end up with the Fran Dream? How'd you get to this place?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in corporate America in the fast food space, a very popular fast food Mexican restaurant. Worked for them for about 25 years. Worked my way up, was a district manager, regional manager. It was a really good career. And then another restaurant company called me and said, "Hey, we're going to start franchising our brand. And we'd like you to come over and run our franchise side, support our franchisees, and help them with new store openings." So I jumped at that chance, and so I went to work for this company. We built it from one store up to 100. So I supported franchisees by opening, and then supported them on what their needs were in their day-to-day operations, and was just out there, and I was having a great time. And the largest franchisee from that group happened to be in Corona, California, which is right next to Riverside, California.
Not that far
And
away.
they said, "Hey, come work for us. We have the most stores in the unit, and help us build our restaurants and our business." Well, another thing that really helped, they were two NFL football player brothers, and so I partnered with them. We did we had our restaurants. We did a franchise of an ice cream concept. We did our own cookie dough concept. We did our own coffee shop concept. And then one of the brothers, he retired from football, over 10-year career, and the other brother got hurt, couldn't fulfill the end of his contract. And then they decided, hey, let's kind of sell off our business, because we don't want to do this anymore. It was a good gig while we were playing, and we had you running things, but we want to go into the tequila business because it's near and dear to their heart and their family. And hey, that's great. I have nothing against tequila, but I decided I would go my own route and not join them. And I was thinking about, okay, well, what could I do? And I remember my dealings with franchisees, and how did you pick the franchise you're in? And all of them just kind of said, oh, a friend told me about this. Well, did you do research on the company? No, not really. And I was really kind of amazed at how they didn't really have just kind of pulled it out of the air and not really did a lot of homework. So that really said, I should go into what's called franchise consulting and do that, as well as the brothers being NFL football players. I saw all the investment opportunities that they had that were really kind of crazy, and just said, I really want to help not only athletes but regular people, find really good businesses to get into in the entrepreneur journey.
James, you see the Raiders gear behind me. You know I'm going to ask. You got it. First and foremost, what was the Mexican restaurant that you're mentioning that you guys were working with? And then two, would love to know who you're working with if you are able to provide that information.
Yes, so the Mexican restaurant was Del Taco. I'm sure everybody out west knows that. And the NFL brothers, hopefully I won't say anything, but it was the Khalil brothers, Matt and Ryan. They grew up in Corona, California. Worked with them and their father Frank, who was also an NFL football player. So it was the Khalil family, and great group of guys, great family, and I just couldn't be happier to not only learn from them and what they're doing, but learn from Frank. So it was an amazing experience.
I love it. And folks, I got to tell you, if for those folks out on the East Coast that have not had an opportunity to get to Del Taco, trust me, it's worth it. The fries in particular. I don't know what those dang crimple fries are just one of my favorites. I love it. Now let's take a little step back. You kind of mentioned, you kind of got into the world of you were working in the restaurant business. You realize, okay, there's an opportunity here, which again, folks, this is the entrepreneurial journey, right? You essentially find a problem with a solution. Sometimes it's usually through networking, a lot of times, or getting out of your comfort zone. And then you find a solution for it, and you go from there. And as James mentioned, hey, we noticed that a lot of individuals are getting franchise opportunities, but do they really know all about it? So, James, I'm very interested. How did you decide and kind of get into the franchise business?
Yeah, I just because of my dealings in the restaurant business of just seeing all the franchisees and that, you know, and I say this when I was working there, yes, I worked for the corporation and I helped franchisees, but whenever I did something that helped them in their business, I always took great pride in that because yes, I was helping them in their business, but in some cases, I was helping them with their life and their personal life to where I did something or showed them how to do something to where it gave them more free time away from the business. So, or it put more money in their pocket. So I impacted their life and not only their business. And that just really showed me the beauty of entrepreneurship. And, I would say once I became partner with the brothers, I would say if someone asked me, wow, what do you think entrepreneurship? And I think almost every entrepreneur would say this would be, wow, I wish I would have done this sooner.
That and what the hell am I doing? Why did I jump into this crazy?
Both, yes.
So I really do love this unique story because again, you kind of also talked about the diversity within franchising, right? Because there's so many different companies, and you also mentioned how you again having this moment with his brothers, being able to have that exposure to different opportunities. Talk about some of the different opportunities out there in the franchise world, and then we're going to dig a little bit deeper and kind of talk about what does it take to become a franchise owner?
Yeah, sure. There's many different opportunities. You drive around and just driving around and you see all the trucks and the businesses. I would say the majority of those are franchises. You didn't know. Most people think, oh, it's just restaurants, which, nowadays I would say when someone comes to me, one thing I tell them is, I'll show you restaurants and give you the background of it, but I wouldn't recommend going into it unless you had a very strong team because it's a very hard business to run. But there's many examples. I'll give you an example of a deal that actually closed Friday. I was working with the NFL athlete, and he's still playing, so he's still playing ball right now. And he said, he's 30, so that's old for an NFL athlete. He's like, hey, I got 2, 3 years left. I realize that when I'm done playing, I'm going to go from making millions to zero. I would like to walk out of my playing career with 500K in revenue in a business. And we looked at, dog grooming, things that dog grooming business, which had great, great upside. We looked at some different health and wellness franchises. And then what resonated most with him was a gym. And a gym that not only is it a gym, but it also is every 6 weeks they do a weight loss challenge. So it works on someone's body and it's to do that weight loss challenge and hopefully you convert them into members and they have proteins. They have their own line of protein shakes. And I really applaud him because he goes, well, if I'm going to put my name behind this, I want to see what's in the protein shakes. I want to know what's in it. What are people putting in their bodies? And he did his research. We actually started last year looking at this franchise. He was doing his research, and then once the season started, he said, "James, I got to pause this because I'm playing, and I got to give them 100% opportunity." And now it's the off season, get ready for camp, and he was like, "Okay, I want to do this. I want to do a 3-store deal." Because I know I want to have all 3 stores open by the time I'm playing, and I want to have that revenue stream. And he just signed the deal last Friday to do that. And it was a lot of different things we looked at, but that's what he settled on.
And I love, and one thing that people probably do not know about the professional players, and this is a true NBA, Major League Baseball, football, soccer, doesn't matter. The one thing about professional players that people do not understand is one, they are entrepreneurs. They are self-proprietors. So they have to get their own insurance, all these other things. Now, with that said, the unique thing about professional athletes specifically, for every revenue dollar they make in any state. So for example, you have home games, you play in LA, you play at the gorgeous Las Vegas Raiders, right? You're going to go to Dallas, you're going to go to Houston, all these locations. Well, every game you play, you make an earning, right? And however your contract is at. So that profit, that revenue that you make in that state, you now have to file taxes in that state as well. So again, you may have 12 road games on the season and you play in 12 different states. That means you're filing taxes in 12 different states because you made an earning in each one of those states. So again, those folks that have to travel to LA on those road games, they are paying the California taxes for that revenue that they got. And I really like that. I'm not going to ask you who this individual is because this is currently going on. So we're going to keep that kind of information secret, folks. But you guys can follow James on LinkedIn. We'll provide that information after the show. But one of the things I really like about this strategy is that soft runway, that of landing pad, right? Because and myself, I'm in the healthcare career. I've been in the healthcare career for about 26 years. I'm literally having the conversation of what does life look at retirement? What do I want to be making, right? I have all the 401k, a 453, got a pension, all these sorts of things. Okay, well, what do I want to do? And then what do I want to do with it, right? Because at the end of the day, when 30 years old, as James mentioned, might be old, right? From a professional NFL perspective. But in the eyes of the federal government, it's still very young. Therefore, you're going to have to pay your health insurance. And I imagine an NFL player probably getting beat up as much as they do, they're going to probably have to see the doctor quite a bit, right? And so having these outlets, having these abilities to go through and find other franchises and work through it. And James is correct. You would be surprised how many franchises are out there. I would say almost anytime you see a company car like that has the logos and things on it, more than likely you'll see a franchise around it. And the reason that they have these specific cars is because it's part of the franchise contract, right? You can only buy the brand new 2015 GMC. It has to be 2,500. It has to be white, all so and so. So James, talk us through that process. Talk us through the process of when somebody's, you know what, I want to find a franchise, and specifically talk about it from your perspective, how you walk your clients through it. Okay, I have some funding. I want to find a franchise. I want to do it. What are some things they should be thinking about first and foremost when we're getting into it? And what are some of the most common things you work with through a client to make sure they're finding the right franchise?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So basically, it's like, hey, I want to get into a franchise. Okay. So let's look at all the options. We talk about the industries that are out there. And we go through, HVAC, we go through, health and wellness, we go through restaurants, which I say, no, don't do. But, painting businesses, home services. So we talk about all those. And now we go, okay, that's kind of what's out there. Kind of got your interest. Now let's talk about a budget. What are you thinking you're going to want to spend? I would tell you that most franchises, you need to have about $50,000 of liquid cash to get into, and then a total investment of about 100 to 200K. We would get, give you some options. More than that, you have more options. Just kind of like a car. The more cash, the more options there are. And then we talk about, okay, owner operator, where are you going to be in the business 24/7? Are you going to transition from your job? Are you going to do semi-passive and you want to open up one unit and then transition from your job, or whatever the case may be? What is your goal? Is it, one unit, two units, generational wealth? Let's figure out a plan of what you want to do. So we talk about that, and we got the options. So then I'll show them, I'll take that and I'll go, here's maybe 5 to 10 different really good options. And we talk about the pluses and the minuses, and we talk about the expense that's going to be opening, the fees that are going to go there. And now if they go, James, I like these 2 or 3. I introduce them to the franchisor, and then that's where the fun begins. And just basically tell them, hey, it's not like buying a used car. They're trying to get to know you. They're interviewing you. It's like a job interview as much as you're interviewing them. Your goal in all this is to dig behind the curtain of the franchise. So prepare them for those steps. They're going to send out an FDD, which is a franchise disclosure document, which talks about, the earnings, the earning potential could be in there. The total investment will all be lined out in there in the fees that you're going to have to pay. So after you get that franchise disclosure document, also in there is the most powerful thing, the list of franchisees in the system. That's where you go, because you can make a claim, and they're very, very, very it's really buttoned down in the franchise side. They're not going to put a number that is not true. Sometimes they don't put a number of earnings claim because they can get a lot of trouble saying you're going to make 100K when, hey, it's business.
Very true.
It's business. So you have to do your homework, and the franchisees are the ones you go to. How much money did you make? What would you do this again? And what is the support like? Because at the end of the day, you're running your franchise business. No matter, you got the support in the roadway. Now you have to follow the path, and you have to make the engine turn and hire the right people, and it's all your money into it. It's all your equipment, and you have to make it run. So the best thing you could do is find a franchise that's going to give you strong support, strong opening support, and talking with those franchisees is super important. And then once we get to that point, yes, we love it. Okay, it's going to be signed. So let's talk about, we could do this at any point, but usually it's towards we get the end. Let's talk about funding. What are we going to do? Are we going to self-fund? Are we going to take a HELOC out of your home to do that? Are we going to do a 401k rollover? Or are we going to do the SBA loan? And we talk about those options and how that's going to benefit them.
Oh man, that is absolutely extremely valuable. So again, having a list of franchisees to go talk to, like, again, these are the folks that are currently owning the business. They have the sleeves rolled up. They are in the muck, right? They are truly dealing with it every day. And let me give you an example, folks, of a simple example of franchising. So McDonald's, obviously everybody sees the golden arches everywhere. Now, sometimes when you see a commercial, they'll have a deal, right? You buy 2 Big Macs for $1, whatever the case may be. Maybe 2 Big Macs for like $10 with tariffs these days. Who knows, right? But nonetheless, there's always the disclaimer: at participating locations. Now, it's up to the franchisee, the owner of that franchise location, whether or not want to participate in those deals. Now, I suspect, I'm not an owner of a McDonald's, but again, from my experience and knowing and talking to folks, everybody kind of gets this option. But again, it's up to that owner to kind of go through it, because it does take a lot of work, even those deals, because then you have to get the marketing and promotion deals from, and again, the McDonald's of the world, they already have the marketing materials. You just have to purchase it from them, right? You go to them, they already have it all. So it's like they already have the branded pens and the branded aprons and the clothes. You just purchase it from them. And they also have the playbook, the expectations, as James was mentioning. It's not just not you interviewing them, they're interviewing you as well to make sure that you are capable and able, because the last thing they want to do is open up another Starbucks in the corner that closes down, right? And so it's really interesting to have kind of that little bit of a runway. But I really like, James, what you're able to offer, and that is the list of the franchisees and your team and bringing them. Granted, it's all part of the process, but you're also kind of that middle person to be that conduit between the individual. Because again, like my wife tells me, like, there's things I know, there's things I know I don't know, but there's a lot of things I don't know. And this is where, James and his team comes in, because they're able to kind of kick off the rocks and kick over some rocks and say, let's ask some pointed questions. So James, in that perspective, if I am in front of a franchisee owner, what kind of questions should I be asking?
Yeah, great question. I mean, really, it all boils down to, would you do this again? Would you do this again? How quick did you make your money back? What were some of the pitfalls that you had, the challenges that you had, and if you had the challenges, how was the franchisor in their support of this? You also just the other thing that you have to keep in mind too, when you're talking with these franchisees too, is you also got to get a seam of, hey, they're going to be my future teammate. Because when you're a franchisor, yes, you have the franchisor support, but now you're on a team with franchisees and they're going to give you just as much support as that franchisor. So that's another benefit in franchise system. The franchisor is going to give you great support as well as the franchisees. You're going to make those connections. And, I've seen it happen. You're probably going to make business transactions with some of those franchisees because you're going to get to know and trust them and be teammates. So, one of the things that you don't really think about by just asking them questions is you're actually going to network with them and you're going to develop a relationship that's going to probably benefit you in the business with the franchisor and possibly future business.
Let's kind of dig into that a little bit, because I think that is really where the rubber hits the road. And because misery loves company, right? In entrepreneurship, there's some miserable moments in our entrepreneurial lives. How important, let's just specifically talk about you, James, how important has networking and building relationships been for your career?
Oh, it's everything. Networking and just building relationships and just the learning you get from that. It just to not make a mistake. And like you said, misery loves company. You go, hey, I'll call it my people. How many deals have you done this month? Oh, me too. Okay. So I don't feel so bad. Okay. Or I feel great, or I'm way ahead of the curve. So it is everything to have that person to go to just look at the pulse of the market. There's some times when I've had different brokers like myself that go, hey, have you checked out this new franchise? Yeah, I've read about it. Well, here's the contact information. Contact them and set up a meeting to see if it's something you'd want to introduce your candidates to. So it is an invaluable resource, is networking.
I love it. It's kind of funny because the networking is really unique because, again, like I mentioned, misery loves company, but there's also going to be, as James mentioned, there's always going to be somebody out there that's kind of reaching out to help you up, kind of thing. And that's kind of the beauty of it. And I would say even when the corporate world, it's really important to network even in the corporate world, because at the end of the day, we might, slip on one of those corporate rungs, climbing up the corporate ladder, and it's going to be somebody else that's reaching out to kind of prevent you from falling down. So make sure to always, be kind and build those relationships. Now, James, one of the things you mentioned, now this is not folks, I'm going to, a disclaimer, this is not a call out to any of the food individuals that are out here, but you did mention, the food industry is probably one of the difficulter franchise areas because, again, the margins are relatively low. So in your perspective, let's talk about some of the lower risk franchise kind of businesses or services or industries that people might want to look into versus some of the higher risk ones that maybe people might want to not necessarily avoid, but ask them additional questions.
Well, the easy one, let's start with the higher one. That is the restaurant business because it takes a special person to run a restaurant. It is not owning a sports bar, clicking back and watching sports all day and drinking with your customers. That is not it. It's
Oh, that sounds
hiring.
awesome though.
It is hiring staff. It's ordering. There's a lot of work that goes into restaurants, and in some restaurants, in some case, it's going to be a turnover of staff where you just constantly have to hire. And if you're good at it and a good restaurateur, that's what you're doing. You're treating employees like gold, keeping them so you don't have that turnover. But restaurant is, I would only do it if you have a seasoned restaurant vet underneath you that could do this. And I would say it's going to be one of the highest investment ranges. Most restaurants, at least half a million to over $1 million to start. And you're looking at your margins of 10 to 15%. 15%, you would just be dancing in the aisles for 15%. So it's a very tough gig, and the failure rate is one of the highest out there because I would tell you, I did restaurants all my life. I had sites that I said, this is going to be a great site and wasn't a great site. We did sites that we thought, we're doing it because the rent's good. We want to get our name out there. And it was one of our best sites. So there's a lot of stats behind it to pick it, but it's not an exact science. So that would be definitely one that I would go proceed with caution, and only if you check all these boxes, even go into it. Lower risk ones are home service markets of window washing, cleaning, anything that really has to do with the homes. Another great franchise is Screen, that they do front door screens. They do screening at the house, replacement screening, cleaning. That's a great franchise that's there. Air duct cleaning. Imagine that. A dryer vent cleaning, very good business. And those are really good because you don't really have to have the brick and mortar and have the lease of to it. So it's home based, brick and mortar based. You have dog grooming, which is just the margins, 40% margins on it. It is great if you want to have a nice passive model that has very few employees, 24/7 golf simulator business. It just kind of runs itself. Very good passive model. So those are just some of the examples out there. There's health and wellness. I mean, we don't have the show isn't long enough to talk about all the great prospects out there for sure.
And I got to tell you, folks, if you look around, well, first and foremost, I'm going to tell you, go check out the shadesofE.com, subscribe to the newsletter, because one of the things, like Daniel Felt, former guest, he is very much Kona Homes. They're in that cleaning out the ducks in your home. In fact, if you go back and listen to that episode, which is probably a good time because it's spring, he tells you about all these cool things you should be doing during the springtime to kind of get your house ready. Make sure, like, for example, dusting out your freezer vents, right? People don't think about those things. Dusting out, making sure that the ducking over for your dryer is all cleaned out so you don't catch on fire. Just little things like that. And then lime paint. Lime paint's another team that has been on this. Again, the home service things. Think about what you tend to need, right? Again, think about put your entrepreneurial hat on. What problems do you have and how can you solve them, right? And one of the things you mentioned, James, which I think is quite remarkable, is truly the grooming right now. The animal grooming service, at least around the Portland metro area, from what I've seen within the last 10 years, has really, really taken off. You're starting to see it more and more often. I do apologize for the folks that have to take my dog in because he's a biter, so I apologize in advance because he will get you. But it really is cool. And then the golf simulating world, in fact, you're starting to see that take off even more with the introduction of Rory and Tiger Woods' new virtual golf stadium, professional golfing, which is, folks, if you have not seen it yet, check it out. It's really cool, really entertaining. I wish they would bring the shot clock that they have in that into real golf. That'd be great. But it really is fascinating that you really do have a lot of different options out there. if you're trying to create a franchise, or if you're trying to look at what the franchise may be, or even if you have a business, if you currently yourself have a business and you think, you know what, I think this could be replicated, by all means, call James and his team and see maybe how do you actually turn your business into a franchise business, right? So you then can create even more passive income. Very similar, as James and I were mentioning, the Sports Brawl, a bar here in Portland, again, 24/7 women's sports, and they now have started franchising. So they raised a couple $1 million, I think it was close to 100 million. I can't remember exactly, but they started franchising. So you might start seeing some of these Sports Brawl 24/7 women's sports bars out in different locations throughout the country, which is, again, originated here in the Portland, Oregon area, but now may be across the world. Del Taco, that originated. Salt and Straw originated here in Portland, but all these things they're franchisable and they're able to expand, and it's really, really unique. Now, James, who is the kind of typical client? Somebody, you got the mic here, so I would love to hear who's a typical client for you. Who are you searching for? Then what can they expect when they work with you?
Typical client is anyone who says, yes, I want to bet on myself. I don't want to work the 24/7 grind anymore, or I'm getting up there in age, I make a lot of money, and I know the company's going to turn their back on me and just let me go and replace me with someone cheaper. Yeah, it's time to bet on yourself. That is the client, or a professional athlete looking to go, I have no idea what I'm going to do when the cheering stops. And, they are naturals because they've been used to following a playbook all their lives. And that's what a franchise does. So it's really anybody who has that leap of faith that will say, bet on themselves, has a little bit of capital going, how do I put this to work? Some people go, well, if I take my 401k and I lose that, I'm just, that's going to be the end of me. And again, it's betting on yourself. And I would say that, you could take that 401k and now you have a revenue stream till the day you pass. And, it really is just look at the opportunities. I had it was a minor league baseball player, first round draft choice in the Braves organization. And he never made the majors, but he had a nice signing bonus. And he's in corporate America now after his playing days. He goes, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. I want to get into a franchise, and I want to have a family business and generational wealth. So he actually chose the dog grooming business. And his wife they're opening their first one up in Atlanta. And he is going to transition from his job when they open store number 2, and the daughter's involved in the business, and he's doing a 3-store deal. He plans to open up as many as he can, and he wants generational wealth.
See, and I love how you give individuals options. Like, what do you want to do? You want generational wealth? You want passive income? I really do love that aspect. It's really, what are your goals and how can I help you achieve them? Right. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. And in particular, what James is in, really the consultant world of the entrepreneurship, right? The communication conduit. As we started this conversation, right? Me and James, we don't manage anyone, but we influence everyone. Right. Now, James, moving forward, this is your time. How can people want to learn more about you? They want to connect, maybe want to, connect with you, schedule a time to actually talk about the Fran Dream. How can they connect with you? What is your contact information? Where can they find you on the internet?
Yeah, I'm LinkedIn, you'll have my bio there, definitely. My website, thefrandream.com, and email me, james@thefrandream.com. Love to just have a chat, even if you're just thinking, hey, it's a year from now, or you just be surprised at life events that you go, oh shoot, now I want to speed up my timeline, so let's get on this and just really just chat about the franchise world and business. I'd love to connect.
Oh man, I love it. In fact, folks, I'm not going to lie. Me and James are probably going to chat a little bit about the franchise world as soon as this episode's over. So again, folks, please go ahead and subscribe to theshadesofE.com. We're going to have all of James' information as well as the emails. His bio as well will be on the website. This conversation will also be on the website, including the video version. For those Patreon members, $5 a month, you're going to have access to this conversation James and I are about to have about franchising. I get a little bit more personal on these after the calls because again, I'm talking a little bit more about me, myself personally, and how I'm going to go ahead and, create my own generational wealth one day. So James, any last words before we go?
I always got to put, I do work with a lot of sports athletes, and I always kind of end with a quote from Wayne Gretzky: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." So bet on yourself.
Yes, in fact, Wayne Gretzky just got surpassed by Alex Ovechkin with the most goals in the NFL season, something like 600. And I can't even remember. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But I think that's the beauty of successful people, is they never believe they're successful because they're too busy chasing success. So let's go out there and be successful. Again, folks, go ahead and subscribe at theshadesofE.com. You can visit me on LinkedIn at Mr. Gabriel Flores. James will also be on there. I'll have all that information. Thank you, and have a great night.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. For more information, please follow the Shades of E on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or visit theshadesofE.com.